do it.
Buckle up. Ann Coulter, how are you, my dear?
Fine, thanks. How are you?
We are great. Shallow, narcissistic con man. You've been pulling your punches lately, and I think you'd be a little more clear about how you're feeling.
Well, I've been calling him these things for a while, but this is so sad. Let's not talk about the end of the country. Can't we talk about something fun, like the college cheating scandal?
We can if you wish. We've been talking a lot about that, actually. And it was do both, right. But you did say something that caught my eye that I wanted to get right into with you. I thought you'd have a few choice sort of bombs to drop before I get into this, but the destruction of lying media, that's something you have said been one of the positive outcomes of President Trump. Explain to me what you're meaning there and where the evidence is.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like that's the only thing we're getting out of this guy. I just think to make progress on anything, the media has to be destroyed. Not, of course, your lovely show. Actually, radio is one of the, I mean, I'm not joking about that. Radio is one of the free speech outlets we still have in America. We have the internet, though, that's being chipped away at with all of these conservatives and some of Trump's biggest supporters being deplatformed by media monopolies like Google, Facebook, Twitter, and I just think, the way they're moving, well, okay, forget that. But as for the lying media, no, I mean, it's gotten so much worse in the Trump era. Obviously, I've written quite a bit about the media. My second book, Slander, was it was about the different ways liberals lie about conservatives, but what's the manifestation of that? Well, mostly, how the New York Times will report things. But it used to be, you could read, I'll take the New York Times as my example. It is the newspaper of record. It used to be you could read New York Times and think, okay, they're not going to give me the most important information in the first 17 paragraphs. But if I read through, I'll eventually get to the facts.
You'll at least be able to discern them.
Right.
You'll get the one sentence towards the end.
Well, no,
right.
No, you can't figure out anything.
No, right.
No, that's right. It's gotten so out of control under Trump. The media, as I said in the subtitle to my last book, the left has lost its collective mind. They've been driven so mad by Trump that the media has just sort of taken the position, okay, it's all hands on deck. We may lose our credibility with the American people, but that's okay. Anything to stop Trump, which is why I mostly watch liberal media, MSNBC. All of my remotes are spot welded to MSNBC at all times, and it's just getting crazier and crazier. They may be able to get their, I guess on their best nights, 3 million viewers, and suddenly Stephen Colbert, who is about to be canceled, as long as he just keeps bashing Trump, his ratings, I mean, this is considered huge ratings. It's 3 million people. We're a country of, 320 million people? Right. So their ratings work, but it's as if they decided, hey, if we talk about a flat earth every night, we can get 3 million people to watch, we'll be making money, and all our kids can go to colleges, and we can pay their school tuitions. Everything will be great, but this is what we're going to do. We're going to promote a flat earth.
Here it is. That's what we're going to do. Have you ever heard of the Gelman amnesia effect?
No.
Okay, this is named after a physicist, Dr. Gelman, who noticed that every time he read a story in the media about physics, it was wrong, it was distorted, it was just so far off his understanding of what they were reporting, and yet every time he would read an article about politics or international affairs, he would forget that fact and assume what he was reading was accurate. And of course, it's harder and more subjective to accurately report things like international relations when physics has a certain amount of factual sort of logic to it. They couldn't even get that right. And I can tell you,
beautiful.
And I will tell you, hey, I can remember when I was a resident, standing in patient rooms, like watching morning news, just sort of in the background. I'd hear something, I go, what? What are they saying? You got to be kidding me. I remember when they announced that they were going to cure all gastric problems with antibiotics, and it was on all the morning shows, a guy from Australia, and I'm like, Oh, give me a break! What is going on here? And so, yeah, so medical reporting, I have to literally interpret it like I'm listening to Chinese, and to get the facts out for people, to help people understand what's being reported. I can just imagine if I knew something about international law or really about politics, I would be driven to distraction all the time.
Yes, but I think people are picking up on it. I mean, in large part because of the media has lost its mind, and they're being more extreme than they ever have. But also you have, and this is why they're being smart to shut down conservatives on Twitter, for example. You can get an alternative perspective. I mean, I noticed this a few years ago. I forget what the crisis was, but there was some, huge breaking news.
Somebody's hair was on fire. Yeah, somebody's got a caught fire somewhere.
I mean, an actual thing that you wanted, like the Ferguson shooting, or Parkland or something. It used to be that when you hear something like this, somebody would be talking about it. You knew there was something going on. Well, you turn on the TV. I bet you nobody does that anymore. What do? The first thing you do is go to the internet.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
So they need to control the internet. Your what is it, Gelson or Gelman?
Gelman.
Amnesia. Gelman. Okay. Your Gelman amnesia theory reminds me of a story one of my friends who was a big chess player told me. So obviously this was years ago. A lot of Soviet dissidents had come to this country, and one of them he kept running into at the grand chess master meetings, whatever these dorks do. And the guy really, really hated the Soviet Union. He said, if I read in the paper it's raining, I'd assume there would be sun. I believe nothing. And then he runs into this guy a few years later, and he says, yeah, I just got back from North Carolina and went to the Wright Brothers Museum. But, you Americans have your own propaganda. Everyone knows that flight was invented by the Dmitri brothers. So there's your Gelman effect. You think you're not believing it, but some of it, well, I must say, the thing I was noticing, I was flying yesterday, so I was reading a lot. The thing I noticed, usually I don't even read the New York Times anymore, and I was their most reliable subscriber. I always wanted to cut an ad for them. I read that every day from probably, high school up until a couple of years ago, but I just couldn't take it anymore. I dropped my subscription. Sometimes, or at least the delivered one, sometimes I read it online. I was looking at it yesterday. It's not only that I don't trust it and they're hysterical, and it is opinion masquerading as objective fact. Well, Trump said vanilla is the best ice cream, but no, it's chocolate. That is a lie. It's a lie. Those are some of my favorite ones. They're lists of the Trump lies. Their idea of what a lie is pretty off the standard textbook definition. But on top of that, it's just really, really boring. And when you have the New York Times on one part of your screen, or, I could go to a website, I could go to Breitbart, Drudge, VDare, and read an actually interesting article, that's what I think is really hurting normal people reading things like the New York Times. And
I think Leeann's heard me tell this story before, which is, I remember when I was an adolescent or a young adult, I was watching some sort of news magazine show, and this U.S. reporter was attacking a Soviet. This was during the Soviet Union, a Soviet journalist. And the journalist finally looked at him and goes, "Why are you being so rough with me?" He goes, "Look, in our country, journalism and the media is a political enterprise. In your country, it is a commercial enterprise. You will have your distortions based on that commercial enterprise. I assure you, ours are political." And I thought, wow. And it stayed with me 40 years. And now we're seeing the ultimate evolution, right? Where they're saying, where they get eyes, which they're desperate for, when they have these extreme Gelman-like stories, where they just want to capture the eyes at any cost.
Yeah, and that is, to go back to the narcissistic, shallow ignoramus who betrayed his voters. I mean, there are probably a couple of good things about him, but one of the greatest things about him is, I never realized how much I hated the Republican Party until Trump came along, and you could see the contrast. So among the things I hate about
a lot of them are into apostasy right now. We got Marco Rubio and a couple others jumping ship, right?
Oh yeah, you know, they're utterly useless. But the basic Republican position when they're slandered is to like keep a letter of resignation on file just in case they used a word that is banned by the New York Times. Oh, I'm so sorry, I said illegal alien. Here's my letter of resignation. Or they do this nonsense, you know, the pussy's excuse for being a pussy. I will not dignify that with a response. You're just going to let somebody slander you? So, I mean, Trump ought to be showing them, or the way this ought to be working, not that he ought to do this, Republicans ought to see this is how you respond when you're being slandered. You punch back. Finally, we had a politician who was behaving that way. Finally, we had a politician, as long as we're on the subject of the new politician prototype we got with Donald Trump, finally we had a politician talking about issues that Americans cared about. I mean, as I wrote in my column yesterday, in addition to all of the immigration problems, I'm doing a new thing so I don't have to engage in bombast or editorializing. I'm just doing Trump by the numbers. You know, number of miles built.
I saw that. Yeah.
0. Number of executive orders, ending the anger baby scam, 0, and so on and so forth. But beyond the immigration issue, which is obviously the main issue that got him elected, a really big thing, and I mean, this isn't me thinking it up later, it's all over my book, In Trump We Trust. It was so fantastic to finally have a Republican who was not beholden to Wall Street. That is just the stupidest thing my party does. They get no donations from Wall Street. Wall Street hates them. The Democratic Party is a wholly owned subsidiary of Wall Street, but Republicans, they're such, most elected Republicans it is, they're such idiots. They just run out and, oh no, we don't want to tax George Soros because he's a job creator. No, he isn't, you morons. So Trump comes along and says, no, they're not job creators. They're getting away with murder with this carried interest loophole, allowing people like Warren Buffett and George Soros to pay a tax rate on their income of 20%. I won't bother explaining. You can explain it later, Drew, how this is done. It's taxed as interest income as opposed to salary, where in their case it's their salaries. This is what they do for a living. So that was a big issue for Trump. And I remember one of the debates, John Kasich was asked about it, and he said, no, they're the job creators. We want to encourage investment. And I'm just sitting listening thinking, please donate to me. Please donate to me. Trump gets no money from Wall Street. The day he got elected, it should have been, welcome to hell, Wall Street. But no, he hires more Goldman Sachs employees than Obama and Bush combined. And what do we get? Do we get a repeal of the carried interest loophole that Trump promised us? No, that would be another big fat 0.
And you mentioned it's a new prototype of politician. Is it a new type or is it a throwback to the 19th century?
I don't know. I'm never wild about the comparisons to other politicians. I mean, you could be right, but I just think it's different times, different people, different country.
Yeah.
You probably are right. All I know is my current Republican Party is so pathetic and useless and refuses to respond to what the voters actually want. If nothing else, Trump should have illustrated to my idiot Republican Party, look, these are popular issues.
That's your new book. That's the title of your new book, My Idiot Republican Party. Are you advocating a new party?
I kind of think we're doomed. I kind of think it's time to, I don't know, you ought to start a medical show. That would be fun.
Let's start a new party. Come on.
Something else.
Let's start a new party. Leeann, do you have any questions for Ann before I let her go?
No, I'm enjoying you two. I mean, I just think that Trump got elected because of her ideas of immigration and build the wall, and he just took her idea, and then he just never did it, and still hasn't done it.
No, and Californians know what's going to happen. I mean, it's a strange phenomenon. You need to come up with a medical term for this, Dr. Drew.
All right.
Why is it that, for example, in Wisconsin, I was campaigning for Paul Ryan's opponent in the primary in Wisconsin. We went there. I was with a bunch of Breitbart people and other people, and we're thinking, okay, we understand why they don't get immigration as a big issue. It's like you've been blasted back to 1950s America. They still have Blockbuster stores. But what, they can't believe people in Minnesota? It takes your state being ruined for you to realize that immigration is a problem?
Yeah. Well, listen, when I first read Adios America, I was skeptical is the kindest word I could use, because I thought, oh come on, maybe jump the shark on this one, and lo and behold, what I've learned about you is you're usually way ahead of the average person being able to see what you mean, to see what's going on, and I've learned.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I've learned to sort of listen very carefully when you say something, and to expect to understand it later, or to see it actually bear fruit, not necessarily in the near term, by the way, either, which makes it that much more difficult to process, frankly. And so I still haven't heard you say yet whether there's going to be a new party or not. To that end.
Well, it's a good idea.
All right, I'll take that as a.
But it ought to be the Trump party. I mean, his campaign was beautiful in so many ways.
Well, maybe you could find your way back into that camp again, and.
Yeah, if he keeps his promises, I'll be right back.
All right, Ann. We really always love having you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And are you in New York? Are you in New York now? Where are you?
I just landed in sunny Los Angeles.
Oh.
We'll see you in LA. And take a good look around and see what's happened to our city. I think you'll be just drive through downtown in Hollywood, please.
I don't want to get tuberculosis, so I'm sorry, I will not do that.
You could.
She already knows.
You could. And
She already sees it.
And watch out for fleas. They are carrying typhus at an extraordinary rate. So good time.
Fantastic. Glad to be here.
All right, Ann.